What's up, everybody? Alex here with a freshly made cup of coffee. Although there are a lot of items placed before you here, I'd like to try to direct your attention to the copy of the Spalding's Official Baseball Guide from 1920. I picked this up well over a year ago and have had it in the display ever since, and you may have even noticed it in a few previous videos, but today is going to be its day in the spotlight. Spalding Guides are a very fun and often very affordable piece of baseball memorabilia that are both enjoyable on their own as a piece of history, but also as a source of visual interest in a display of vintage cards and memorabilia. The first Spalding Guide was published by A.G. Spalding himself and was released in 1876. A new edition would be put out every year into the 1940s, at which point it merged with the rival Reach Guide, and for a couple of years there during World War II became the Spalding Reach Official Baseball Guide, before turning into the Sporting News Baseball Guide that ran all the way to 2006. In all of its various iterations, the guide featured rules of the game, editorials from baseball writers, stats, photographs, and analysis of the previous season for all the major league teams, and many of the minor leagues as well. Being the entrepreneur that he was, the guides also included promotions from Spalding's line of sporting goods, and that included, of course, baseball equipment such as balls, uniforms, gloves, and bats. From a collector's perspective, the guides really provide a glimpse into the development of baseball equipment, and they can even be used to help pinpoint the date of equipment-related memorabilia. Of course, the main thing that jumps right out at you about a Spalding Guide is the cover. These guides double as works of art, especially the inaugural illustration, which was in use from the initial release up into the 1920s. But beyond the covers, the true draw of these guides is the unique content within. Just picking a year from the many releases can give you a deep insight into what was going on in the game during that particular time period, a sense of how the game was viewed by both the fans and the media. Which leads to my 1920 copy. I chose it because I figured it would be quite interesting to see what was documented in the Spalding Guide for this year, definitely a tumultuous one for baseball. Well, I was not disappointed. When this guide was published, this really was just the 1919 World Series. It wasn't the big, scandalous, infamous Black Sox series as we know it today. Although there were strong rumors of gambling and scandal during and after the series, it didn't officially reach the courts until September of 1920. So the guide has no mention of the impending doom that awaits Joe Jackson, Buck Weaver, and all the Black Sox players. The guide gives an overall breakdown of the series, looks at each team, and provides a breakdown of each game as well. It's interesting to go through and compare what we now know of what happened to how it was first relayed to the public. You can pick out now famous moments, such as Sakati's second pitch in the first game, which struck Cincinnati leadoff hitter Maury Rath in the back, delivering a prearranged signal that confirmed the player's willingness to go with the fix. As I was first flipping through the book just to enjoy the images as they went by, a name jumped out at me and got me to stop on the Cleveland Indians page. It was Ray Chapman, a very important name in baseball history, one that in many ways signaled the end of one era and the beginning of another. On August 16, 1920, Chapman was struck in the head and killed by a pitch thrown by Carl Mays during an Indians-Yankees matchup at the Polo Grounds. And here he is, just a few months earlier in the year, when a fan would see him as just another player ready for a new season of baseball. And speaking of transitions in the game, about halfway through the book, you get a single-page image of Tyrus Cobb, the long-established face of baseball. And then, on the very next page, is an image of George H. Babe Ruth, creator of a new home run record and about to start his first season with his new team, the New York Yankees. Talk about a sign of things to come and a literal turning of the page in the evolution of the game. It's quite satisfying to revisit a time when information was not just a click away, when it had to be meticulously compiled and released in a special guide that you waited for and devoured upon release, and likely returned to time and again throughout the year. Now, of course, our information is instant and disposable, and in some ways, it's kind of a shame that we don't have the same kind of reverence about the year-to-year happenings of the game as these guides do. Sure, we can look up the stats online, but these guides capture a mood, a time. They ask you to focus in on the particulars of one year and to relish that experience. From a practical perspective, you can say these guides are obsolete, but from a long term perspective, they're evergreen. They mark a moment in time that we can always return to, reflect upon, and learn from. And of course, they can always sit behind our baseball cards and help capture a mood from a different era of the national pastime. Before we wrap this up, what's a year that you'd go after from the Spalding Guide catalog? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for checking out the video, guys. Take care, and I'll talk to y'all soon.